So another week, another location for the Hidden London Hangouts, and today we're at Edgware Road. Not just for the station, we're learning to play with signals today, aren't we, Chris?
We are, because the signal cabin here is a really historically important one, and the museum looks after it, and I have the keys. But we also have a very special person with us today, Charlie. Charlie, why have you joined us?
So I've come along because I used to work in the signal box at Edgware Road. I didn't just work there, I also taught other people how to work there. And indeed, I was the very last person to pull the very last lever back in September 2019.
This is amazing. So green lights all the way, welcome aboard. Hi everyone, welcome to Series 3, Episode 16 of the Hidden London Hangouts. My name's Alex Grunton and we're going to do something really, really cool today. We've done a lot of stuff on trains, we've done lots of stuff on stations, we've done a little bit of stuff on buses. We've never done stuff about signalling and the safety way that the tube keeps us safe, effectively. I don't do this on my own. I've got three amazing people from the London Transport Museum to guide us through this. First of all, Chris Nix. Hello.
Hi, Alex. Nice to be out and about again, isn't it?
Oh, it's nice, wasn't it? It's very nice to put a little high vis on. I got very, very excited. Siddy Holloway, hello to you.
Hello, good to be back, guys. Sorry I missed you last week, but I had a little bit of a tummy bug and unfortunately had to kind of lie in bed. But I'm very, very excited to see where you guys have gone this week because I've never been.
Well, it's fascinating stuff because obviously there was a million get well soon messages for Siddy last week, which is always very lovely. But also Siddy was doing some work on the TV series that is coming up. So she wasn't with us in the signal box, but Laura Hilton Brown was.
It was so much fun, wasn't it? Back out on the road with you guys as well. I mean, I literally was mesmerised from start to finish yesterday. Signalling is not something that has floated my boat before, and it totally now is. Honestly, I loved every second of it.
It was brilliant, wasn't it? And I think by the end of today's episode, you may have an element of sympathy. Every time you hear the phrase signal failure, we all go, ugh, but actually, we're going to get a little bit of sympathy for the people who fix the problems when they happen. First of all, let's have a look at the exterior of this amazing technical palace. And Chris Nix has got a selection of beautiful, beautiful pictures.
Here we go. This is Edgware Road, a nice aerial shot here, looking down upon the station. Now, the station itself opened on the 10th of January 1863, along with the rest of the Metropolitan line, the first underground railway in the world. So it gets brownie points for being a world's first. One of these stations, but the bit we're interested in is in the top right-hand corner of that photo. Almost can't see it, but there's a tiny little flat roof building there, which is the signal cabin. Now that was built in 1926, the current one that's there. It was modernised in 1952, and that is where we're going to be going to have an explore today.
I love the fact as well, there's a C-stock, a C69 train just leaving the platform there. I get quite excited about these things.
Oh God, you've been completely turned over, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been indoctrinated into the way.
Can I just say, I'm worried though that Laura's starting to slip into this stuff as well. She was just confessing that she's getting bitten by the signalling bug. I warn you now, Laura, it's a short hop, skip and a jump from being interested to starting to buy bits of signalling equipment like that. So, you know.
By the end of this episode, you'll also find out a bit more about the dings that happen at the start and the end of this episode as well. So trust me, go on, Chris, do it. See, I love a ding. We'll get a bit more on that later in the show. Show us another picture, Chris. What we got?
Okay, we're going to jump straight inside the box now and have a look at when it was modernised in 1952. So this is the lever frame, which replaced an earlier, much sort of bigger kind of manual lever frame, and the display panel above it. Now, this is what it looks like today. Or yesterday.
It still reminds me of a fish and chip shop.
Yeah, it does have a fish and chip shop vibe to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's weird.
Battered Savoy, please.
Of all the things you could order, I love it. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and the whole thing is completely full of kit and caboodle, isn't it, Law?
It is. I'm just wondering, in your fish and chip shop, do you have 38 varieties of fish and chips to order? Is that where we're going with that?
Pollock.
No, she meant it.
Excellent work. Now then, we were toured around this amazing place by a wonderful human being called Charley Monroe, who is a signaller and was actually the last signaller to use this amazing piece of kit before it was taken out of service. And we didn't realise, but it was quite an emotional time going back for Charley when we went back to this place. But before we got into the box, Charley showed us a very, very important whistle. So what's this?
So this is the cabin whistle. So this was a very, very high-powered, air-powered whistle that we would use originally when the cabin open would have been to communicate with train drivers or other staff. You know, we didn't have radios and things back in the day. But towards the end of it, it was just if one of our friends was driving a train or the driver was taking a little bit too long for whatever reason, we could just give it a quick toot and let them know. And I will admit this now, I think 2 years is long enough. I do apologise to all the residents around here for whistling it very loudly at 1:15 a.m. in the morning on the final day, but it was, you had to send off the cabin in a great way.
Charlie, totally.
And when a driver's being slow, what is a hurry up toot? What does it sound like?
Just a quick toot, it just goes like toot.
One bar.
Yeah.
Wow. So that is, you're marshalling your toots.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And like I say, you know, back before we had train radio, before we were able to actually talk to drivers one-to-one, they're all different like codes and things. So you'd have different numbers of whistles or different patterns to talk to drivers, carry out shunt moves, to tell the train maintainer that they needed to come and look at a train. It had all different manners of use, and then obviously the trains have got whistles as well, and they would whistle back. Brilliant.
It's your main comms, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
So that's your way of communicating.
Brilliant.
I love that.
I love it. Well, this is fantastic, but we need to look in this cabin because I'm getting very excited about that brown door now.
Shall we go up? Towards
Let's stop there. Oh, here's the door then. Okay, right.
Okay then, right.
Yeah.
Well done. We've made it to the top. It's time to go in.
Charley, big moment.
This is, yeah, first time in for nearly 2 years, so it's to be...
You probably know where the light switch is, don't you?
I
as
do,
well?
yeah.
Do you want to help us with that then?
Yeah.
I'm allowed in too.
Yeah, look at this.
Oh, team.
Charley, you look completely stunned.
It's exactly as I remember it, but also completely not. But just being back, it's like it's all coming back to me. You know, you've got the trains running past. Genuinely, I'm not known for not knowing what to say, and I'm speechless.
This is amazing. First of all, we can just see the roof of a S.2 train there, right?
Yeah,
So-
which really shows you, you know, we saw it as we were walking on the platform, it shows you just how close we are to the trains.
Super close, yeah.
You're on top of the service here.
And also this beeping. Are we? How many feet underwater are we at the moment? Because it sounds like a submarine.
Yeah, so the beeping, that's a new thing. I think it's coming from this bit of kit here, which is the old Signal Post telephone equipment. That never used to be like that. That would have driven me crazy if that was there all day. But yeah, other than that, you know, it's exactly near enough exactly as it was, and like we've still got a handful of lights and things. I mean, this one in particular, signal number 8. It's the one signal I never pulled. It's the one signal that I never got chance to use. So the fact that that's the one that's still on as well, I think there's a kind of it's calling me back almost.
Yeah. I don't know about you. I was bowled over by what I saw there, Chris. That's not the first time you've been in that place, but it's just spellbinding, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So my first visits were when we were looking to take on the responsibility for the cabin after it finished being in use. So I've been a few times, but it's lovely to go back with somebody who actually worked there and feel that kind of significance. Also, it's nice to see a whistle in use without getting told off for it.
Christopher Nix, you promised you wouldn't do that.
I knew it was only a matter of time before that whistle would make an appearance on the show.
Anybody needs a Swanee whistle? How lovely. I was just going to say, Sids, have you ever thought of yourself as a signaller? Do you think you could do the job?
I don't know. You know what? We spoke to Charlie a few weeks ago for the TV show because she's so brilliant at just explaining. I mean, as we saw, just kind of explaining how it all works. And I really didn't quite, I think, comprehend how complicated and how potentially stressful that job is until, she was kind of just telling us what you have to do in each moment. And I was like, oh God, you really, it's like air traffic control. You really cannot get frazzled. There's no really, room for mistakes, so to speak.
Absolutely. But you have driven a crane. So I'm thinking this is something that you could probably do.
Oh, I mean, if I had to, I probably could.
Absolutely. And Laura, the history of this signal cabin, don't call it signal box for some reason, signal cabin, is pretty impressive too, isn't it?
I think that's why we were all, we saw how emotional Charlie was as well. And then I think, we all kind of got, I get swept up in that, stepping back in time. It is a little time capsule, essentially, isn't it? Because it marks the end of an era. It's kind of, less manual, more digital now. And I think the fact that Charlie did work that last evening, we all kind of felt that when we went on the site visit yesterday as well. I mean, my brain was taking us to how many people could we have in here for a tour? Or I wonder if we could get this, into the public domain. So that was always in the back of my mind. But as we said before, the way that Charlie explained how it all worked, I mean, it's just phenomenal. And just this lovely little step back in time as well. I mean, that machinery is really old, isn't it? And we could all tell that it had been worn down, years and years of use. And it's not a subject I knew much about, so I was hooked. It was really interesting.
Yeah, me too. I was properly bowled over by it. I mean, let's be honest. The only thing I wanted to do was play with Charlie's whistle. But before I did that, we needed to know how the thing works and the history of it.
So, just before a global pandemic struck, the museum was offered Edgware Road Signal cabin to add to its collection, and because it is such a significant and long-standing lever frame in here, we said yes. And a couple of weeks before lockdown, I was given that key, but haven't been back here since. And so it's delayed all of the things that we'd normally do, like ask those people who worked in it to tell us about it so that we can share that with audiences. We did, in the last few weeks of operation, shoot a piece of film of it being used, but that's all we did. So, Charlie, what do I need to know about this place and what do our viewers need to know about it?
So I guess the headline parts of it, it opened in October 1926 as then the state-of-the-art signalling system. It replaced a slightly older one with big mechanical levers that people are more familiar with as part of the expansion and modernisation of, as was then, the Metropolitan Railway. It was originally known as B, cabin letter B, and it ran like that pretty much until the 1950s, when in 1952 it was modernised into pretty much the condition we see it today. Same building, same levers, same bits underneath it, but it got this rugged metal frame in place of a wooden one, and then it was also relettered to OP, which is then the prefix that it carried until its closure. And this is just a way of being able to tell which part of which signal box controls which bit of railway. The lever frame itself, it's got 38 levers, and it's known as a K-style frame built by Westinghouse Brake and Signal Company. It's the last K-frame remaining on London Underground. These were up and down. Every single station would have had one of these in the heyday of the tube in the 1920s, 1930s. And indeed, we've still got a slightly more modernised version known as the N-frame. They're still in use at Rickmansworth and Harrow on the Hill on the Metropolitan line today. So whilst it is very old technology, it's actually still keeping the tube running, and indeed this one was keeping the tube running right up until 1:15 a.m. on the 1st of September 2019.
I know that one of our previous commissioners, Sir Peter Hendy, always said that he had two museums in TfL. One was ours, London Transport Museum, and the second one was the Signal Box.
Yes, exactly. And it's, despite the age of it, it's had to also keep modernised and keep with the times. It was finally closed as part of the 4 Lines modernisation programme, which is bringing automatic train control to the Circle, Hammersmith and City and District lines. But actually that project started about 10 years earlier with the new S-stock trains. I say new, they're getting on 15 years old now.
They're relatively new.
Yeah, but actually Edgware Road had to have a lot of modernisation done to it just to actually fit those trains in, because they're so much longer than the ones that came before, the C-stock trains. And so when we got things like this box, the box that's just over there as well, and these were just ways to keep the railway running safely for the longer trains. At great expense. Signalling is not cheap because of the safety elements involved in it. But it only actually operated for around about 6 or 7 years in total, which is not a long time at all if you consider that the cabin has been here for almost 100 years now.
Now, Chris, you're a very technical person, so obviously the technology of this box, it doesn't faze you at all, does it?
Well, no, not personally, but I remember when I first worked with our collection and looked at the amount of signalling equipment we had, our volunteers down at the depot had brought some of this equipment back into life so they could demonstrate it. And that really is the key. This stuff, it looks all right, you know, it survives a passing glance, but to be interested in it, you have to see it working and have somebody explain how it works, and also understand some of the fundamentals. Otherwise, it's a really complicated thing to understand. Charley, however, makes this stuff sound and look quite effortless. So it's a great tutor to find out how this stuff works.
I don't know about you, I don't know about Chris, but I do. I want a bit of a signalling lesson. I want to know how you do it.
Yeah, we can.
What does this all do?
So many different colours,
Yeah.
and levers, and things.
So, as I say, unfortunately we won't be able to actually move any levers, but if you go down to the Transport Museum or look on the Transport Museum website, there is actually a video showing how one of the frames would have worked. But what we'll do is I'll talk you through the rough process of getting a train from Paddington through to Baker Street. That's probably the easiest way of doing it. So on our diagram, we have Paddington Suburban down at the bottom right hand side, so that's Paddington Hammersmith City in the Circle Line. Platform number 16, Signal Oscar Papa X-Ray 131, which is the bottom right hand side. So that's what we call automatic signal, that train will just run. And then the first decision we have to make is when the train gets just before this junction here, which is Prairie Street Junction, to signal number 37. So on the frame, our red levers are our signals, and our black levers are our points. They're the important ones for the time
That's
being.
interesting. I never knew that.
See?
Never knew.
And so if we want to do signal 37, we look on the plate here. So it's Prairie Street Junction, eastbound out to home. So a home signal means you're nearly there. You're getting home. And crucially, what we haven't got is a number down here. So if we look at number 38, for instance, we've got 27, which would relate to number 27 points. But because we haven't got one, it doesn't matter. We could just now reverse that. So that wouldn't have been there, or there, or there, or there. Or
I love the fact you just know what shouldn't be there.
Or
It's like, we'll get rid of that, we'll get rid of that, we'll get rid of that.
We'll put them where they normally live, which is there. So those ones would have been there like that. So you just reverse it all the way back, and that would come all the way to about here in what we call the reverse position. This light will then go out as it is now, and the signal will go green on the ground. So that means the driver can carry on. Next signal we get to on our journey round is number 36. 36 is a bit of an interesting lever, where that would just live in the reverse position. We didn't have to do anything with that one, which is why those would normally be on it, but all the way back here. So the train will go through that one on its own. It will still go red and green, but we didn't have to intervene in normal running. So the next one is now our junction signal, 33, 34, 35, or specifically Oscar Papa 33, 34, 35, because we've got to be very clear and safe with our communication. So that's these three signals here. And again, you know, we have the instructions of what we would have to do. So normally trains would run through platform 1, but we'll pretend that we're being a little bit interesting here and putting it through platform 2 instead, which is normally the district line platform. So that would be signal number 34. Easy way of telling it, you've got 33 to the bottom, 34 to the middle, and 35 into platform number 3.
Yeah.
So it's all very nice and structured in how it laid out. So for signal number 34, we need 23 points, or points 2, 3.
So you find that one there?
Which would be that one there.
Yeah.
Points, now normally you would have as you can see, so this one's actually still working. So N means the points are in the normal position, and then down here you would have had R in the reverse position. So we imagine we've got our N here on 23, we reverse the lever, would come into the halfway position, just where you see the notch. Points would go and do their thing, and that would be the huge hiss of air that you hear when you're waiting at the platform, and then it makes a big clunking noise. You'd then get your R here, and then you can bring it all the way back across. And then once that's done, you'll be able to do number 34 lever all the way over.
And so that's basically setting the signal to say the
That's
line
saying-
is set, the path is set.
Exactly.
And it's okay to go.
And indeed, you know, if we didn't have the right points there, if we try and pull 34, and that's the interlocking, which is all contained
Isn't that
under
incredible?
here,
All in these cupboards.
all under here doing its job. Yeah.
It's just incredible. Incredible.
So then our train comes into our platform number 2, and then we need to get rid of it. And it's exactly the same thing. So our station starting signal, so it's starting you off on your journey, is number 29, Oscar Papa 29. And again, we just want to have a look. Points 14.
Point 14, which is here.
Points 14, over and over, and the signal will go, and the train's on its way to Baker Street.
What do you think, Lol? This is pretty cool.
I think
isn't it?
this is like a vintage Art Deco hunk of loveliness. I really like the whole frame and everything. I still think I'd be terrible at being able to do all the levers and the buttons, so hats off to you. Just talking about the board up here as well, the illuminated bits would have been the clear bits of track, and then because my brain would want it to be kind of the other way round.
A lot of people say this, and it's something that you will never actually find agreement with signallers over. The Underground did things the opposite way round, as it does in many ways to how National Rail and the Main Line did things. And certainly up until roughly the sort of 1970s, you would have had lights on where there is no train, what we would call a track up, and then if there was a train there, it would be a track down, or the light off as we see it at the moment. I prefer it this way round, as it were, because, as I say, we use the terms tracks up and tracks down. Tracks down means that there might be a signal failure, so the tracks have got a low voltage electrical current running through them, which the trains then short circuit, and that's how you know when there's a train there. So if the light's off, then you know there could be a train there, or there could be something else there. So the light is off, the track is down, light is up, the track is up. More modern systems have moved it around on the Underground, so it would be as it is now, and then when there was a train, the lights would be on. It's the same way of showing the same information, but I prefer it this way round.
Yeah, now you've explained it like that, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Why it is that way around.
Do you know, you talk about details as well. The thing I really love is you can imagine all these signallers with loads of rings on, just taking all the roughness off these levers.
Well,
They're
look, this
smooth.
must be from all of the
like
wearing
the
of kind
watches and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And so these are red when the signal is red. Is
They
that
are
right?
red when the signal is not green.
Good point. Good point. Because this is another thing. What is the sequence of lights for an average signal system?
So on the Underground, we
Yep.
just use, with a handful of exceptions, we use what we call two-aspect signalling. So there's a red light and a green light.
Yep.
Most people will be more familiar with mainline signals, which will also have a yellow and a double yellow. But on the Underground, because of how we operate, having to have high-intensity services, we just have a red and a green. So the way that it works is, when you clear the lever, the signal makes a load of relays, which are in that room there, do a load of funky
They
things.
just clunk a lot, don't they? Click, 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 click,
That'll
click.
be whirring as it is, clicking, clacking back and forth. And then that sends electrical current down to the signal, which will make the signal go, the green signal come on. The red signal will also be on at this stage, so you get the green and the red. And then it also sends a current to what we call the train stop, which is down on the track level. These go up and down and will stop a train if it goes through the red signal, and it lowers it. And one of the really interesting things about the Underground signalling is that the red signal, the red aspect on the signal will stay on until that train stop is all the way down.
Interesting.
So just because you get a light go off here doesn't actually necessarily mean that the signal is green. It just means that that kind of sequence of events has begun. But if it's red, it means that signal is red. We know that it's safe if it's red, and we know that it's not necessarily red, but also not necessarily go when it isn't. And that's just part of the knowledge that you've got to have to keep on top of your things, and if things go wrong, be able to deal with them.
Amazing.
Laura, do you think you could ever do that? Do you think you could see a train through from Paddington to Baker Street without clunking it into something else?
Do you know what? I think not. I think that it's a skill, and I think that it's being able to work under huge pressure and being able to look at that bigger picture. There were a lot of levers and knobs and buttons and screens, and I think it would overload my brain. I have even more kind of kudos to signallers for what they do. And I, as a commuter, you have a signal failure, you get stuck. I mean, it's a pretty negative kind of feeling when you're in a rush or you're on a journey. And I've done a flip reverse on that now. I now realise that, you know, these signallers are equally frazzled trying to sort that out, and signal failures are a bane of their life as well. But just that whole map and how it all works, no, I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I'd like to think, sorry.
Oh, sorry, no, I'm cutting you off. No, you'd like, sorry, go on, Lauren.
I'd like to think I could do it, but deep down I know I couldn't.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, because I wasn't there yesterday. This may be a stupid question, but
No, there's no such thing as a stupid question on the Hidden London Hangouts.
what is, I mean, I know there are several different types of signal failures, but, you know, in essence, what is a signal failure? Like, what happens?
Oh,
It can cover a lot of things. Signal failure is one of those terms that is actually huge what it can mean. Often it means that the signals have done exactly what they are there to do, which is protect and fail safe. But it can range from literally a mechanical failure of a signal, fairly rare, through to something that interrupts the signaling circuits and therefore makes everything fail safe. Can be as simple as a piece of tinfoil wrapper shorting out a section of track and connecting one to the next. So range of things, and you're unlikely to ever find out after an event exactly what it was that caused that signal failure.
This is amazing, isn't it? Yeah, and you know what? We can go back to the cabin to find out more.
It's incredible, isn't it? This?
It is.
Absolutely incredible.
Sorry, Alex. You talked before about it feeling like a rhythm and really feeling like you're kind of part of the system, and I really loved that. When do you feel like that happened? You were not the kind of signaller who was still kind of thinking about things, and it just became like less training and more, okay, I know this now, I've got this.
I think for me, it just happened. I couldn't necessarily pinpoint the time, so this was the second signal box that I did, so I'd already learned the basics, and I already knew the pattern of how the circle line and the Hammersmith lines run. But it was a 10-week training period of you here in here every day with an instructor. And I just remember one day just looking around, and my instructor was just sat over in the corner, still keeping an eye on everything, but not being on top of it. And it was just like, yeah, you got it now. And I think that was, because I'm an instructor myself now as well, and it's that moment of gravitating from looking over your trainee like a hawk to just getting further and further away and just letting them get on and do it. And yeah, I think, you know, for me, the time when you know you can do it is when you get your first big signal failure after you qualify, and it was a few months after Edgware Road when I got mine, and it was one of the biggest signal failures on the underground for a good few years, where we lost the entirety of the Praed Street junction, and that was, you just have to deal with it. You can't flap, you can't hesitate. You've just got to follow the procedures and get on with the job. And that was, I think, for me, is when I knew that I got it, because it was just like, right, nice and calm, do what you can do to keep trains running. We hate signal failures just as much as everybody else. They make our job a million times harder.
And what is that mood like in here when there is a signal failure? Say Praed Street Junction decides to go pop. What's it like in here?
It's kind of a heart-stopping moment at first. So that one, for instance, it was actually 27 points just here that failed. So I went to reverse them, lost the normal indication, and then didn't have the reverse indication. And they were quite slow points anyway. So you'd leave them a moment, and it was like, okay, why are you not getting these normal sets? So you try to go back to normal, and they're just not responding at all. And it's just that, right, okay, what do we do next? How do we now get the train? Because you've still got trains coming down on you from all sides.
And presumably when 27 goes, that means the circle line can't operate clockwise, can it?
That's correct. So with no 27 points, you can't bring any trains up from Paddington, from Hammersmith on the Hammersmith line, and you can't bring any trains on the what we would call the outer
circle,
rail, but the clockwise circle line. That's nothing done, and that here as well will also then affect the district line service coming up from Edgware Road. This is Edgware Road coming up from Wimbledon as well. So it's just, you lose that, you lose a lot of your service. All you can really do is run an inner rail anti-clockwise service, and then you're also able to bring in the trains from Baker Street, put them in platform number 3 and reverse them away again. That's all you could do, and we had to do that for a good few hours whilst the engineering bods were down trying to fix the problem.
So next time we have a signal failure on the tube, don't get angry, think about the poor souls who are trying to fix it.
Yeah, as I say, we are always trying to do our best. We do not like signal failures. They make our job, our workload, go through the roof. And either myself as the signaller or the engineering colleagues will be doing our very best to fix it as quickly as we can.
I feel told.
I think one of the things about watching an experienced signaller at work is it's that understanding that when everything's going right, it's a fairly complicated job, and you have to keep track of everything and remember that you are keeping people's lives safe. But when it goes wrong, that's really where you earn your money and fix those faults and have to sort of take the breath and calmly solve the problem. It really is very impressive to see.
I can't get enough of this place. So let's go back and just dredge the information base another time.
So as we know, Charlie was the last person to use this signal cabin the last night. What was it like to pull that lever for the final time? Describe how you felt.
It was incredible, really. It was the weight of being the last person ever to run a signal box that's been running for nearly 100 years. It's run all the way through a world war, peace, war. It's always been here. The gravity of it, I think, overcame me. I had a couple of people up with me taking pictures and things like that, and there's a photograph that really nicely sums up the moment I realised what I was about to do, and my face just goes like completely just like in awe almost. And then, was watching the train. So the last train went from platform number 4, which is the top platform, empty train, came along and round, and then off towards Paddington Circle. And just watching it, ordinarily all these lights would be on, and where the lights are off are where the trains would have been. And so watching the light just go off as it moved along, it was like it's getting closer and closer now to what's going, and then finally passes over the junction. You hear the clunk, which is the safety system being lifted. And then knowing that, right, you've got to now put that lever back to the position it's in now. And that was it. It was just really sad, but also such a huge privilege to have the opportunity of doing that, as I say, for a cabin that has been here for so long, and so many people have both worked but also been affected by, like, millions upon millions of people have been affected by what's gone on here, and it's incredible.
So I've got 2 questions for you. First of all, did you shed a tear?
I did, yes.
Great. And secondly, you mentioned that you woke up the whole of the borough with the toot.
I did.
Where is the toot button?
The toot button is this one over
Amazing.
here.
Amazing.
In theory, it's still going to work.
Good.
Can
Can we?
Can
we? It works. It still works.
Alex Grundon.
Sorry, just too exciting. Too exciting. Well done, Charlie. So we've even got a toot out of the old signal box as well.
Yes.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Would you come back, say the opportunity arose and they needed this to be kind of back up and running? Would you be back in a heartbeat?
In a heartbeat. Like,
So.
I always say, I don't have a career plan. I don't know what I want to do. I fell into signalling. It was something I ended up doing by accident. But if they said, can you come and work at Edgware Road forever and ever and ever, and that's all you ever do again, absolutely, 100% in a heartbeat, because it's such a special place for me and everyone else who worked here. There's no other signal box like it, certainly on the underground, and yeah, I mean, even just being back today is incredibly special and a little bit emotional for me.
I can literally feel the emotion.
It's so nice to feel it.
We're an emotional bunch at
Yeah,
here
totally.
as well. So I think kind of you just fit so right in with us. And even just talking very briefly when we were up in the station, I feel like you didn't fall into it. I feel like it was like you
meant for you.
Yes. So very much so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have said this. It's something that I just picked up so nicely, and yes, it was never my plan, and it was never something that I'm a lifelong rail enthusiast, but I've never particularly had an interest in signalling until I started doing it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those where you every now and then you'll find something, and it almost calls you without you realising it. And I think that's exactly what's gone on here.
The network is super lucky to have you as one of its signallers, because I think you're incredible. I think that's just such an amazing story, isn't it?
And thanks for giving us a bit of an insight into how this place works. Because
so the bits that you actually pull and control up here look quite fun, but I'm interested in what's in the cabinet and what sort of lies beneath the tip of the iceberg.
So this is the bit that everybody sees and everybody knows. This is the, as you say, the fun bit. But this is not actually where the business happens, and this is not the important part to an extent either. That lies in here, in the room behind me, and also in the room downstairs. So underneath here, this is where we have what we call the interlocking, and the interlocking that's the fundamental basic safety elements of that. It's like a giant computer, but from the 1900s. And what you have is a series of bars that are horizontal and vertical, or vertical and horizontal, and these interlock. That's where the name comes from. So as you were to reverse a lever, it's got little notches in it. So that lever will now cause the vertical shaft to move up or down, and to connect with the horizontal ones with those notches, and that will then lock out other levers from being used. So once you've got something reversed, it means you're not able to do what we would call a conflicting route, so you can't set one train into another. That goes right back to the days of the semaphore signalling and the really big levers. That's got the same basics of interlocking. But obviously as technology's moved on, we want to make things even safer where we can. So London Transport then supplemented that with electrical locking as well. So kind of slightly behind the frame, you've then got basically loads of electromagnets, which will also, as the track circuits go up and down, lock in place. It's called the locks, and that will add a further set of interlocking to make sure that you can't move the levers when you don't want to. And most of that is then controlled in there, which is the relay room. So these are some big relays, which is your standard electrical relays, where if you put a current in, it will do something, and then it will either do something else or stop you from doing something. And that's essentially how that worked. And then you've got another series of relays and things that are at trackside, just helping to keep the system nice in there. And these principles continue right through to the modern day signalling. All we've done really is change this for a computer screen. The actual safety elements and the interlocking, okay, it might now be done in software rather than actual physical machinery, but it's the same principles and it's the same premise.
And that kit's really quite big, isn't it? I mean, we've got a few of those relays in our collection, and they're kind of big glass-sided things, not the tiny little things you'd have in a car. And it's also the reason that I think you always go up into a signal cabin, isn't it? Because you're basically sat on top of the big analog computer that's keeping the railway safe.
Exactly. So in the traditional semaphore era, the reason why the signal boxes were so tall is because they had to have this mechanical locking underneath it. Obviously, as we start to miniaturise, you can now fit the interlocking just in floor level here, but you need somewhere to put all those relays. And as I say, Edgware Road being a very tight, cramped space, you've got the room there, you've got even more underneath, and then I was saying how we had to expand and modernise for the new S stock. That's the new big silver room, just as we came in as well. They are the small ones, they're much more modern, but you had to add so many more on there that they needed to put in a brand new room 10 years before the cabin shut.
I suppose as well, being up on the first floor, it also gives you somewhere nice to have a cup of coffee and watch out over the railway.
Can you sunbathe out there?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, you get a lovely view out of the balcony over the station, and also you get the fantastic Art of the Underground rapper piece by Jacqueline Poncelet. And it's just a really nice atmosphere, and you didn't get much respite at Edgware Road. It was very, very constant, but every now and then you might get a couple of minutes. Just go and stand out on the balcony when the sun's there with your cup of tea, and just watch the train go by.
I love it. It's fascinating, Chris, isn't it?
Well, thank you. It's been brilliant to actually get back here and start finding out about the cabin. Postponed by a year, but good to do it.
It's been incredible to come back.
Can I do one thing? Can I play with your tutor?
Hang on, what are you doing?
I'm going to play with a toot.
Oh, hang on.
What do I do?
So it's this whistle push, just so if you just give it
That one?
Yeah.
Oh my God! How cool is that? Oh, Siddy, I'm so sorry you couldn't join us, but let's go back again another time, because I could sit watching Charlie fiddle with that place all day.
Oh, I know. I really wanted to be there. Unfortunately, I was doing the voiceover for the TV series, which now has a premiere date, but we can talk about that a little bit later. But I really, I wish I was there, because also it's actually the end of the branch from Wimbledon, which is my branch of the district line. So funnily enough, every time I get on my platform and it's an Edgware Road train, and I normally want an Upminster one, I get kind of annoyed, because I'm like, I need an Upminster or Tower Hill train on Edgware Road. But it is a very interesting station, and I have a newfound appreciation for it.
Well, it's funny you should talk about Edgware Road, because in a minute we're going to give you a factoid, which is so cool.
I never even twigged why it's different, but we found out from Charley why. First of all, let's have a little look at Charley at the controls, because it was just such a lovely moment, wasn't it, Laura, when Charley basically just bubbled up with emotion at being back at her old workplace.
Yeah, it was a lovely moment. And I think obviously the machinery wasn't on in its entirety yesterday. And so Charley couldn't show us all of the movements that would happen normally. But there are clips of this from previous shows on YouTube, and I was having a quick look at them before we went yesterday. And I don't think I fully appreciated until we were there on site. Charley said something, and I know this stuck with you as well, Alex. Charley said that it's a rhythm, and you become like one with the system. And Chris has just alluded to this as well, that when there is a problem or an issue, that's when your skill as a signaller really kind of comes into play, how you deal with that and how you react. And what was really lovely was then understanding what that actually meant, because I think when we were there and we saw all of the different bits of apparatus on that frame, it makes you think that it is such a rhythm and such, being part of the system. And then when something went wrong, you could feel it. You could literally feel it kind of slipping away, and you had to do something to kind of maneuver back into that rhythm. And I really loved that. I thought that was such a lovely way of phrasing it.
Yeah, and also in the same conversation, we were also talking about the sort of passion that she has for the job, and it's a love. And I felt very safe in Charley's hands, actually. If there's somebody who's in charge of telling which train where to go on a complicated junction, I'd want someone who really loves their job and understands the kit in order to do it. So we were really bowled over by Charley. But while we were there, we decided to have a look at the station itself as well, because there are some amazing little features to Edgware Road on that particular, because there's two Edgware Roads, don't forget. But this is not the Bakerloo line one, this is the other one, the subsurface one. And so we decided to go outside the building and have a look at what we could see.
Well, that was good, wasn't it?
It was, I love that. And the station itself at Edgware Road on the subsurface is really pretty as well, isn't it?
Definitely worth a look. We might recognise some things that we've seen before, not least Charley, who's just on her way to...
Thank you, thanks for showing us around.
On her way to her shift. So yeah, the building itself, we've seen examples of that at when we covered Lords, for example. If you look right up at the top there, you can see the Metropolitan line written there and the diamond that we associate with the Metropolitan line.
Charles Walter Clark, Clarkitecture, Metroland, it's all there, isn't it?
Should we go and have a look?
Yeah, let's do it.
Wow, my contribution there, guys, was let's do it.
Well, mine appears to be a tin of Harmony hairspray. So it looks like I could do with a massive, great thing to control my bouffant. It's ridiculous.
You all look beautiful and lovely. And what an amazing building, because you know what? I've actually gone through that a few times. And every time I've gone, entered through that station, I've been like, wow, this building is actually amazing. And so fun that, we've actually talked about it before with the Lords, with all the other Clarkitecture buildings in episodes past, to kind of see it in the flesh like that. It's really nice.
Yeah, it was the details on the window, wasn't it, Chris? And the beautiful brickwork and the lettering. I just love it. And also, we've talked about this before, the diamond, which was the original style of effectively the roundel, wasn't it? The tube sign was a diamond.
Yeah, the Met used to like to use a diamond for that and put their station name boards over a diamond rather than a circle. But yeah, the nice little lamps over the former poster frames flanking the doorway there as well, really rather lovely. So yeah, handsome looking station.
Gorgeous
so
stuff.
the flat roof, so I wonder if they ever had any plans to build anything on top of it, or whether, or not. Also, I wonder what's there on the second floor, because you see there's a door there. Do you think it's offices, or what? Do we know?
It does say Edgware House, so quite often they either turn into offices or sometimes they can be flats as well. Some stations have of this era have.
God, imagine living there.
Yeah,
I love
remember that was the case at Lords.
well.
They're absolutely gorgeous, and the station inside as well is pretty cool as well. And Laura and I found ourselves in a little booth looking at something that was there but ain't there now.
So Laura, we're in a cubby hole.
We're in the phone cubicle.
We're always in some kind of tunnel or cubby hole or something, aren't we?
It's pretty cool though. They've got a tile up on the wall. It's stunning. And of course, this would have been where your little phone booths were in the days when nobody had mobile phones.
Oh, nice. Look at the colour of these guys.
Gorgeous, isn't
A
it?
little bit of green.
Mr. Nix is picking all this up on camera. A lovely little corner of this station though, isn't it?
And just outside there was some Art in the Underground tiles as well. They're actually on the buildings. I want to say to the west, but you're going to probably correct me.
East.
Ah, wrong way. To the east.
Beautiful stuff, and it's so nice to be out and about again with the crew. It's absolutely wonderful, and it is a station where, you know, wherever you look, there's really cool stuff to look at. Some of the stuff's missing, some of the stuff like the phones, but some of the stuff is still there. Would anybody like to see the tiles again, by the way, because there's a beautiful shot of the tiles, Chris?
Did you notice that just in the background to the right, when you guys were talking about the tiles, there was a family walked up and saw us looking at the detail, and you can just see their hand go in because they're going, oh, look, there's some people looking at interesting stuff. We'll do the same.
We started it again. We're going to get packed again, aren't we? Like we did at Marylebone. I mean, to be honest, it's funny because Laura loves those tiles. I actually am less of a fan of those tiles than the other ones we see because they look a bit more rough and ready. Laura?
Well, you know, I love a rough and ready tile. When we were there, what I loved was it reminded me of what you might get, like on the bottom of some kind of lovely Greek swimming pool. That kind of, it's not mosaic, but you know. And I was like, you know, Edgware Road, pool in Greece. There we go. There's my link with the tiles.
I love that. And if we look at the next photograph, it's the canopy, and that reminds me of a riad in Marrakesh.
I've just spotted something on this. Those with particularly keen eyesight might have just noticed. Little fly made an appearance.
Oh, nice. Nice work. Well done, Fly, for getting in the way. But look at the canopy. It's really, really cool. I just think it's a really nice looking station. And somebody's bothered to put plants in there as well. I love that.
It's quite charming, isn't it? It's almost like a conservatory. You could imagine it having some quite tall trees and being an outpost of Kew Gardens, really.
Totally. And Laura, our resident art fan as well. We've got something for you in a moment. But look at this. This is the old black and white of that corridor down there. I mean, even the amount of light that comes into that station, Sids, is quite phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, it helps that it's subsurface. It's right on the ground, but it is very light.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And you know what? It's really quite interesting to see it, you know, when you go there, how well it's sort of been preserved. And it's sort of one of the few ones that still remains in this style, you know, after all this time. So it really feels like a bit of a time capsule when you go through it, because you sort of get a sense for, you know, a different era of underground travel. And yeah, I love those skylights. I just think it's such a clever way of bringing more, you know, light and kind of make the space feel bigger and more sort of impressive almost.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And Laura, we have art on the underground for you as well. We like to get your grey matter going.
Lovely,
way
lovely.
Above the station. Looking at that wall. Tell us about that.
So do you know what's really lucky as well for us yesterday is it was a really lovely sunny day. So you could really see the different kind of artwork here and the colours. And if you are on that kind of Edgware Road Circle Line tube, you can't get off or on the train and not notice that building. It's by an artist called Jacqueline Poncelet, and it was November the 12th. It was the 30th November 2012. And she did a lot of research in the local area. And what she kind of like found was all this lovely architecture, stories from people, information about the local environment, and created what is essentially this giant patchwork. And all of the grids have different artwork on them, and that is to represent the local area. And it kind of, I think it's supposed to weave together. So it's like telling a story in itself. And what happened with my brain is Charlie was saying about how the signallers that worked in that cabin would take a break and they just like nip outside. It could get quite hot and pressurized in that environment. Then they have a cup of tea or a little walk kind of trackside, all very safe, obviously. And that would be their view. And so I think for them, this was a lovely kind of view and piece of artwork for them as well. And Charley actually started a movement on social. It's called #TheLastStroke. Check it out on social media. But it's this really lovely social movement where they're talking about that last moment in the signal box. And somebody actually wrote on Twitter something about people, memories, moments, and history. And that really kind of resonated with me. And then if you think about the artwork on the opposite side to the cabin, reflecting essentially the same thing, I think that's a really lovely kind of marrying up of moments.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I love the fact that, as always, you just interpret art in a way that none of us can. So thank you very much, as always, for that. Now, I love a factoid about the tube, and I know you do too. And we discovered something yesterday which blew my mind, frankly. When you look at most tube stations, the dot matrix destination boards on the screens, on the platforms, are orange in typeface. But at Edgware Road, they're red. And what no one could get their head around was why, until Charley explained, didn't she, Chris?
Yeah, so my guess when we'd gone through there was that it was a prototype one, which indeed it was. But the reason that they kept them as red and didn't change them to orange is apparently because this is a subsurface station which is open and has the sun shining in. When the sun comes in at a particularly low angle, it can make the orange ones very hard to read, whereas the red ones you can still see the contrast. So that's why they've kept the red ones. And this is what I love about Edgware Road. There's all these little features that you can see. You've got fantastic artwork, these vitreous enamel panels covering a functional substation that could otherwise look quite ugly. You've got this little curiosity here. And there's one more as well, isn't there, Alex?
Yes, absolutely. And this I know a lot about this actually from a job many moons ago. And this is what happens when old signals are taken out of service. And you'll see that there's a very high class shroud placed over them, sometimes with the addition of a white tape cross. It's a bin bag. Is that not right, Chris?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It is. That's the high-tech, expensive solution for making sure that the signals don't confuse the drivers.
Just
now that
hilarious.
It doesn't have trackside signaling.
Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, a lovely old bin bag. So keep your eyes open for those as well, because any line that has been re-signalled where they've left the old bits and pieces, you know, London Transport's plan that any bits of cool stuff should be left in situ, but just hidden so it doesn't confuse anybody. Well, sometimes those boxes are left on the platform, just covered in black bags and with a white tape cross. So there it is for you, Edgware Road Station and the signal cabin. I think there's probably enough to go back and do another episode at some point. It was so good. Laura, what a day that was.
It was really lovely, wasn't it? And the sun was shining for us and we were back out on the road. Obviously we missed Sid's, but we'll be back as a foursome soon, I'm sure. But it was really special one, actually. I'll remember that for a very long time.
It was totes emotion. Notes, queries and questions, as always. Lovely to get your responses to what we do. First of all, Nick in South Yorkshire, watching all the way from South Yorkshire. I love this. He says, just getting around to watching the latest episode of Hidden London Hangouts. I didn't anybody yesterday in a meeting. I do love the fact this has really caught on, Chris.
Well, they've explained it as well. So yeah.
It's almost lost its fun now. Now everyone knows how I've got to this anybody situation. It's all good. Lots of comments as well about the lights. Do you remember last week we were talking about the lights that people saw as navigation methods? Do you remember this, Chris?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
The old museum layout pre-refurb in the late noughts had an example of these lights for interchanges to mainland line terminals, says Unhappy Shurl. For Paddington was yellow, Waterloo was blue, if I remember right, was above an old wooden escalator to walk on towards a 1938 train carriage. This is me trying to remember as an 8-year-old, but I think it may well have been in the 1950s as well. Also, a question for you all. What's the most recently built bit of disused infrastructure you guys can tour around? Is there anything more recent than Charing Cross Jubilee?
That's a good one. Give us a week on that one, eh?
Yeah, that's a good one. Paul Giffin, as always, thank you very much for a lovely show. Drew and little Ethan, baby Ethan, great episode. Get well, City, and looking forward to the Patreon edition. We've got loads more. Love the Marylebone edition, upstairs and down. My favourite station on the system. Dino says a big stressful day at work. All I needed was a bit of this, which was great. Your enthusiasm for these episodes is mind blowing. Marilee Bon, like Simon Lee Bon, a famous name everyone knows, but always debated on how it's pronounced. Thanks, awesome, foursome. Have a lovely week. And 5Jamer says, lovely upbeat show. Thanks, Alex, Chris and Laura. Get well soon, City. Travelling from Marylebone main line gives great view of the Met stations from Baker Street by passing Lords and Marlborough Road and Finchley Road, running parallel to the Met, even beyond Harrow, as the trains overtake the fastest Mets. It is a bit like a sort of like a road race, isn't it, when you get out of London, Chris?
Yeah, I've done that a few times because I can use that line to get to Harrow on the Hill or the Met line, and yeah, it is quite fun looking out the window and sort of going, yeah, we're winning.
Yeah. And a big thank you as well from Charlie Boggis. Do you remember the designer we met last week? You've all started following her. Her Instagram's gone crazy, and you've all said the nicest things about her design. So she is cock a hoop with delight. It's fantastic. So, well, that's it from us for this week. Laura Hilton Brown, thank you as always for donning the high vis and coming with us.
Oh, it was fun to get the high vis back on, wasn't it? I didn't mention before as well that the art on the underground piece is called Rapper. I think I got very excited about chatting about the patchwork design that I didn't actually say that. And thank you to Charlie as well. Awesome site visit, and hopefully all our paths will cross again soon.
Absolutely. City, we're going to go somewhere soon with you. Very, very lovely. It'll be beautiful, sexy, and full of histoire.
Yes, let's go somewhere. You know, now I'm dying to get out there, dying to see you guys, and just, you know, let's start exploring. You know, people always ask me, you know, surely you're kind of reaching the end of, you know, what you can show people, and I'm always like, we're just getting started, my friend.
We are just wet wiping the dirt off the first layer. That's what we're doing.
That's right,
Chris
baby.
Nix, thank you so much as well.
Well, thank you, Alex. It's been great to go and do something really curious like this, and finally go and open the door on the cabin at Edgware Road. But because it's a Signal episode, it seems appropriate to finally explain what a few people worked out for themselves about the start and the end of our episode. You might remember that this signal block indicator is in the start and the end of each of our episodes, accompanied by a bell code. And bell codes are for signallers to be able to talk to each other in old signal cabins.
You've got a lovely box, Chris.
Thank you. I thought you'd admire that. Now, this has got a bell in the bottom of it.
Right.
And it's also got what's known as a tapper, which makes the bell at a neighbouring box ring. And that's how signallers can quickly talk in code to each other to ask whether it's okay to move a train into the next section and when the line's clear and so on. So at the start of each episode, you hear this code, 3 followed by a 1, which is a signaller asking the next box whether their section of line is clear for a passenger train. Okay, and at the end of each episode, you get a, which is a 2 followed by a 1, which means the line's clear. So basically it's the start of the episode, the passenger train approaching, and then the train having left the section at the end. So there we go. Question asked, answer.
You can't but love him, can you? He thought of that. So how do you do that? I have to say, by the way, few things excite me more than playing with a whistle. So the fact that I could toot the whistle at Edgware Road, well, it made my week, frankly, possibly my month or my year or my lockdown, who knows, but it was wonderful. Thank you very much as always to the team. Thank you so much to Charley Monroe as well for showing us so much. If you want to get involved, find us on Instagram, Alex Grunton, Chris Nix, City Holloway, Hidden London Law, and at LT Museum. Now you're on YouTube, great, like, subscribe, and comment down below. Questions that you might have for us, comments about the episodes, or suggestions as to where we can go next. We've got loads. And if you like the technology of signals, coming up in a future episode, we're going to drive a train. Cool is that? Have yourself a great day and stay safe.